Salutations, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, I'm Grega. As many of us know, Godzilla Minus One was the little movie that could in 2023. It did gangbusters in its native Japan, it did very well in the United States, and it also more recently won the Oscar for Best Special Effects at the Academy Awards, very deservedly so, I might add. Because of the movie's resounding success, Takashi Yamazaki, the movie's director, shed some light about a month ago on what he might like to do for a Godzilla Minus One sequel. Yamazaki-san told Empire magazine that he would very much like to continue the story of the characters that were in Godzilla Minus One, and that even though Koichi Shikishima, the protagonist's war, is seemingly over, that perhaps the events of Godzilla Minus One were simply the calm before the storm. And he strongly suggested that that storm might be not just the return of Godzilla, but the appearance of some other kaiju that Godzilla has to fight. He said, quote, "I don't know that anyone has pulled off a more serious tone of kaiju versus kaiju with human drama, and that challenge is something that I'd like to explore." Now, it's been forever and a day since Toho produced a live-action Godzilla movie where Godzilla fights another kaiju, so I am totally ready for them to bring back the Versus movie. As for which kaiju Godzilla would fight in a sequel to Minus One, Toho has a massive rogues gallery to choose from, so on the face of it, there are plenty of options. But when you examine Yamazaki-san's statement, it seems like he wants to keep the sequel to Godzilla Minus One in the same grounded tone as the first movie, so I think that limits what kaiju you could choose to be Godzilla's opponent. Of course, there is the option of creating a brand new kaiju for Godzilla to fight, or Toho could finally, after all these years, give Bagan his first Godzilla movie ever. For those of you who don't know, Bagan is this kaiju that first appeared in the video game Super Godzilla. I think it was for the Super Nintendo or one of those systems. And he's notorious among Godzilla fans for his many would-be appearances in scrapped Godzilla movies. Before I go into which kaiju Godzilla can fight in Godzilla Minus Two, here are the ones that I don't think will work. Number one, any monster that originates from outer space. Having a kaiju from outer space fight Godzilla would automatically throw away the more grounded tone of the Minus One universe, which, as far as I can tell, Yamazaki wants to keep intact. So I'm sorry, that means no King Ghidorah, no Gigan, no Space Godzilla, and no Monster X. Two, no mechs. Given the fact that Minus One is a period piece and, again, constrained by its own grounded tone, there's no way that Godzilla is going to fight a mech in Godzilla Minus One's sequel. Because absent some sort of outlandish explanation like aliens, which we've ruled out already, there's no way that post-war Japan is going to have mech technology to fight Godzilla. So that means no Mecha Godzilla, no Mecha King Ghidorah, no Mongera, and, I'm sorry G-fans, no Jet Jaguar. Now let's get into the kaiju that are actual options that could work. There are a couple kaiju that I think could work for a Minus One sequel, so long as their origin stories were altered slightly to fit more into a post-war setting. And these two kaiju are some of my favorites ever, Destroya and Biollante. Destroya was originally this crustacean that was mutated by the power of the Oxygen Destroyer, which was the weapon that killed the first Godzilla in the original 1954 film. Obviously, there is no Oxygen Destroyer in the Minus One universe, so that couldn't possibly be the explanation. But since Destroya was originally an earthbound organism, I can see some explanation being given for how it got mutated that would not break the grounded tone of the Minus One universe. The same goes for Biollante. Biollante is this plant kaiju created by mixing plant cells with Godzilla cells. Now, as far as I know, there was not genetic engineering in Japan during the late 40s and the 50s. So a Godzilla Minus One sequel, if it wanted to include Biollante, would have to offer some other explanation for how this kaiju came to be. But instead of them changing the origin story of one of these monsters, I really think what's most likely is that they're just going to take the simple approach and have Godzilla fight another kaiju that's like him, another prehistoric beast that originated on Earth. So I'm thinking kaiju like Rodan, Mothra, Baragon, maybe Manda, even though that's not a very popular one. But the kaiju that I have heard the most people asking for to be in the Minus One sequel is Anguirus. And this is one of those cases where I am in complete agreement with the crowd. Anguirus first appeared fighting Godzilla in the movie Godzilla Raids Again from 1955. So we've already seen this kaiju in a post-war setting, and I think it'd be cool to see that again and have him be Godzilla's main opponent rather than being Godzilla's sidekick, which is what we saw for most of the Showa era. Also, I would love it if Anguirus got the same sort of visual revamp that Godzilla got in -1. I mean, seeing Anguirus with that finely detailed skin rendered with modern special effects, as a hardcore Godzilla fan, I'd love to see that. So that about wraps it up for this video. Chat it up in the comments down below and leave a like and subscribe if you dig what you've seen today. I'm Grega, and you all look after yourselves. Cheers.